ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Let me make sure we're all set. I believe so. Today we are going to be doing a King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album tier list. So, King Gizzard is a Australian psych rock band, for those who may not know. Extremely prolific. Just since, well, let me pull up my Spotify here. Since 2011, they have dropped 23 studio albums. And these albums cover a whole bunch of different genres and vibes, and they are just an incredible group, and probably my favorite current band, and honestly my favorite band of all time. I think they're really great in everything they do. So down here we have all of their main releases. I've already gone through and thrown a bunch of their albums in this bottom category because they have a ton of live albums. Now, not all of these in here are live albums. Some of them I've never even heard of. The Holy Ghost, I've never heard of that album. This is Teenage Gizzard, which I have heard, but it's not on Spotify, so I can't really get a great grasp of it. I've only heard it a few times. These two here, this is a remix album, and this here is just a short little 30-minute album that I've only really listened to it once, so I didn't feel great ranking it. And same with King Gizzard's first album here, Willoughby's Beach. Also haven't listened to that one that much. So without further ado, we're just going to get started because there's a lot of albums here. I've got my Spotify pulled up so I can list off some of my favorite tracks from each album. But starting off with King Gizzard's first album, 2012's 12 Bar Bruise. It's a real garage rock type album. It's got some good highs on it. Let me check this track list. 12 Bar Bruise. Looks like the OBS disconnected. The West during the Western expansion. It's a cool album. Definitely like a real cowboy feel to it. If I'm ever like driving in like Arizona, if I'm ever in like the desert, Eyes Like the Sky would be a great listen. Some of my favorite tracks. Evil Man's really great. Eyes Like the Sky, the title track, is also really good. Drum Run's kind of cool. But yeah, overall, this album isn't going to rank very high for me. It's cool, but it's definitely in the lower tier of King Gizzard albums. So I think I'll just leave it here in the C range. Moving on, though, also came out in 2013, we have Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, which is the band's first real excursion into, like, psych rock. Their first, where they really, like, show off that side of them, and kind of really, this is when King Gizzard really blew up in America, was when this album dropped. And I, over the last year, have become very fond of this album. Some of my favorite tracks from here would be Head On / Pill, which is a fantastic 16-minute banger. Let Me Mend the Past is a really, I don't even know how to describe it, very sweet little groovy track. Poppin' My Step is also really good. God's Calling Me Back Home. This album is filled the brim with bangers. I think it solidifies A tier category. Moving on along, we have Oddments, which also came out in 2014. It's kind of an eclectic grouping of different kinds of tracks. It's not a very cohesive album, but it's fun nonetheless. Some of my favorite tracks on here would be Vegemite, It's Got Old, Sleepwalker, Hot Wax, and Homeless Man in Adidas, which I think is just a hilarious track title. But I think Oddments is going to go in B. It's a great album. I love it a lot, but there are so many other King Gizzard albums that I enjoy more than it, even though it's very good. We may have our first S tier album here. I'm in Your Mind Fuzz. Here. I'm just gonna put it right up in S tier to start. This album bangs, top to bottom, super good. Lots of recurring grooves, and it's a great starting off point. Um, it looks like it keeps disconnecting over and over, which is annoying. But we're gonna keep trucking. Um, yes, I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, easy S tier album. Next on the list we have Quarters, which is a unique album. I actually have it on vinyl here. It's just in a little sleeve because the actual cover of the album is the poster of the album art. I have that up in my room. But Quarters is a really interesting album. It's four songs, each divided. Each song is 10 minutes and 10 seconds exactly. That's why it's called Quarters. Um, but this is the band's first like excursion into like jazz fusion, and I am a huge fan of this album. Lots of really, I can't say lots of great tracks. There's only four of them, but The River and God Is in the Rhythm are two fantastic tracks. I'm not a huge fan of Infinite Rise and Lonely Steel Sheet Flyer, but they're still great nonetheless. And I think this album's gonna fit securely in the A tier. It's a good album, a little bit short for King Gizzard's um, discography, but for their first kind of trek into jazz fusion, I think it really hits. The River, especially. The River is a fantastic track. Uh, Continuing on along, we've got Paper Mache Dream Balloon, which is the band's only fully acoustic album, which I think is very interesting. It definitely has a unique sound to a lot of the other albums in their discography. A lot of acoustic guitars, a lot of harmonica, a lot of flute. Um, and yeah, it's just a very unique sound overall for them. Some of my favorite tracks off here are Sense, Paper Mache Dream Balloon, Trapdoor, The Bitter Boogie, and NGRI Bloodstain. I think those are all great tracks. I think this is going to fit securely in the B tier. It's a good album, not my favorite, but definitely worth a listen and definitely fits nice in their discography. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a fantastic album coming up next. We have Nonagon Infinity. This is an immediate S tier album. Nonagon Infinity is like the perfect concept album. It starts off, every single song runs perfectly into each other, and then the very ending of the last song goes perfectly back into the first song. It's a perfect loads once we stop disconnecting from OBS. I've got poor internet connection, so if this kind of pops in and out, I'm sorry. But Robot Stop, Big Fig Wasp, Gamma Knife, Mr. Beat, Evil Death Roll, Wawa, Road Train. Listen to this album, I'm telling you. It'll change your life. It'll truly, truly change your life. Hold on. Top of the S tier. Fantastic album. Go give it a listen. If you've never, ever heard King Gizzard, listen to Nonagon Infinity. You'll be a fan. I promise you. Moving on along, we've got Flying Microtonal Banana, which is the band's first attempt at microtonal music. And I didn't know what microtonal music was for the longest time. And it's very popular in like Eastern music, especially India. But what it is are the microtones are the notes in between notes. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's the best way to. It's a very unique sound. This album's very good. I think this is an A tier King Giz record. A lot of highlights on here. Rattlesnake especially is a fantastic song. Sleep Drifter, Doom City, and then the title track Flying Microtonal Banana. I think they're all hits. Yeah, definitely worth the listen. I think it fits securely in the A tier for King Giz. Moving on, we have, unfortunately, one of my least favorite King Gizzard records, Murder of the Universe. This album, kind of similar to Eyes Like the Sky, is more of like an audiobook record. Like, there's just a lot of spoken word passages throughout. It's definitely like a harder album, I'd say. Like, it's their going later into their discography, King Gizzard kind of goes heavy on the harder tracks. But yeah, this one is just not my favorite. I think it's gonna go down in C tier. Maybe I just need to spend more time listening to it. Maybe that's the problem. But right now, as it stands, I think it fits securely in the C tier category. Moving on along, we have Sketches of Brunswick East, which is the band's second attempt at jazz fusion. Let me tell you, this album hits. This album is so good. If you haven't heard it, change it. Because this album is an S tier King Gizzard album. S tier King Gizzard record. We're Sketches of Brunswick East, Countdown, Tezata, The Spider and Me, Dusk to Dawn on Lygon Street, The Book, Rolling Stone, You Can Be Your Silhouette. These are all fantastic tracks. Tezata in particular, the little this rivals Christmas music in my opinion when it comes to wintertime. Moving on along to our next album, another S tier. Another S tier album. We have Polygon to Wannaland. And this is another record that I actually have on vinyl here. And this album is fantastic. Truly. It's the most like prog rock of the King Gizzard albums. They focus a lot on polyrhythms, given the name Polygon to Wannaland. And yeah, let me check the track list again. Just to give you some of my favorite tracks off here. Crumbling Castle is a 10-minute intense banger. We got Polygon to Wonderland title track, also really great. Deserted Dunes, Welcome Weary Feet. Inner Cell, Loyalty, Horology. There's nothing I can really say about this album other than listen to it. Just me saying the titles of the songs doesn't really do it a lot of justice. It's up to y'all to listen to it. If I wouldn't get copyrights, then I would. Actually, let me reverse that. This album is public domain. King Gizzard very specifically made this album public domain, which means that anybody can own it and anybody can press it. And the vinyl that I have for this album looks insane because it's just like a bootleg. Let me pull it out for you to show you guys. Look at that. They don't make vinyl like that. That's crazy. Polygon to Wonderland's a great track. I recommend everybody go and give it a listen. Coming up next, we have Gumboot Soup, the last of the 2017 albums. I didn't say this when I started. King Gizzard's released 5 albums in the year 2017. Murder of the Universe, Flying Microtonal Banana, Sketches of Brunswick East, Polygon to Wonderland, and Gumboot Soup are all released in the year 2017. Which is insane. How does a band release 5 quality albums in the same year? That's why King Gizzard are goated for me. Like, that's beyond comprehension. Most artists can't release a single album in like 6 years. Like, Frank Ocean hasn't dropped an album since 2016. King Gizzard have dropped like over 10 albums since 2016. I love them for that. Moving right along, taking too much time. We have Gumboot Soup. This album's good. It's good. It's kind of similar to Oddments in a way where it's like a collection of a bunch of different songs. It doesn't really have like a cohesive feel to it, but it's a good album. I'll give it that. I think it'll fit in the B tier pretty squarely. Some of my favorite tracks off of Gumboot Soup are Beginner's Luck, Muddy Water, The Last Oasis. Yeah, those are my favorite tracks. It's not my favorite, but still worth a listen. And moving on, after their 5-album 2017 run, they took a little bit of break. They took 2018 off, which is understandable. And they came back in 2019 with Fishin' for Fishies, which is a... How do I describe this? It's like an electronic, bluesy kind of jam record, and with themes of like conservationism. I said that word completely wrong, but it's okay. We're just gonna move on. And this is an A-tier record for me. Lots of great tracks on here. Very strong grooves as we go through. Boogeyman Sam, Plastic Boogie, This Thing, and Side Boogie are all my favorite tracks off it. Yeah. I don't really have too much to say about it other than it's a good album. So let's continue right along to another S tier King Gizzard album, Infest the Rat's Nest. Let me throw it at the top of S tier right away. I'm going to start off by saying I am not a fan of thrash metal. I've started to get into it recently a little bit more, but when I first heard Infest the Rat's Nest, I was not a thrash metal fan. But this album, pardon my French, kicks ass. This is the hardest album in the entire King Gizzard discography. The guitars are shredding, the drums are drumming, the bass is bassing. This is another album that I have on vinyl, and I cannot say enough good things about this record. If you're a fan of thrash metal, or even if you're not, listen to Infest the Rat's Nest. Because there is not. If I ever have to go to war, I'm listening to Infest the Rat's Nest to pump myself up. Every single track on this album is a hit for me. Planet B, Mars for the Rich, Orbit Organ Farmer, Superbug, Perihelion, Self-Immolate, and Hell. Stop what you're doing, turn this video off, and go listen to Infest the Rat's Nest by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. I'm telling you now. You will not be disappointed. Moving right along, in 2020 we got 2 albums. Well, actually, 2020 just had KG. But KG is the band's second attempt at microtonal music. I also have this one here on vinyl. And this one, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's not my favorite. There are other microtonal King Gizzard albums that I like more than this. But yeah, really nothing more to say other than it's another microtonal King Giz album. It's also unique in the fact that it came out during 2020, so the band wasn't able to record it together. They were all recording separately in different places, and then they put it all together at the end there. But KGLW, the opening track, Automation, Straws in the Wind, Honey, and Ontology are all good tracks from this album. Yeah, more microtonal King Giz. Can't really go wrong, which is also the case for LW, which I will put in the A tier because I like it just a little bit more than KG. But like I said, more microtonal music. But I think I like more of the songs on LW compared to KG, so I think I'm going to rank it one space higher. But if not now, then when? One, Supreme Ascendancy, Static Electricity, and the end track, KGLW, are all very good from this album. Moving right along, we have Butterfly 3000, which is the band's most electronic album, I'd say. It feels kind of like almost like a side project of an album. And to be honest, I'm not huge on it. I think this album has good highs, but in its entirety, I'm not the biggest fan of Butterfly 3000. Some good tracks, Shanghai, Interior People, and Black Hot Soup. Those are my 3 favorites. But in the grand scheme of their discography, it'd probably be one of my lower albums from them. And now we are moving into their final 4 albums, which all came out this year, 2022. Starting off, we have Omnium Gatherum, which is I think King Gizzard's longest album. And it's another kind of eclectic grouping of different kinds of tracks and songs. But I think this one's going to go solidly in the A tier. I like this album a lot. Lots of good highs on here. We're talking The Dripping Tap, an 18-minute monster of a song to start it off. Very jammy, my kind of thing. Magenta Mountain, Gaia, which sounds like it could be off of Infest the Rat's Nest. Ambergris, Evilest Man, Garden Goblin, which is a really fun track. The Grim Reaper, which is kind of like almost sounds like Beastie Boys almost. Predator X, yeah, Presumptuous, Persistence. There's a lot of great tracks on here. I think it's worth the listen to anybody. And then now, all 3 of these next albums were released just last month, October of 2022. And let me tell you, it was a great month. I actually went to go see King Gizzard live in concert in Detroit during here, and their live performance is insane. I love their studio albums, but their live performances honestly blow them out of the water. Um, but let's get right into it with another S tier banger of an album. We got, let me pull it up so I don't mess up the name because it's a little bit of a doozy. Ice, Death, Planets, Lungs, Mushrooms, and Lava. This album has a unique concept where each song is based off of the 7 Greek modes, which I looked it up and it's basically just scales. I didn't really know what the Greek modes were before, but yeah, each song has a real jammy feel to it, especially Ice 5, Magma, Lava, Iron Lung, Hell's Itch. I can't say anything too great about this album. Like, it is just a classic, solid album from top to bottom, and I think it is definitely worth a listen to all. Moving along, we have Laminated Denim, which is a short 30-minute album of 2 songs, both 15 minutes each. And it's heavily based around like a ticking clock motif. Like, you can kind of hear the rhythm of a clock going the entire time. And this is a good album. I feel like I haven't had too much time to really sit with it in the entirety of the King Gizzard discography, like some of these other records. But I think it's good. I definitely need to listen to it more, but I think as it stands, it's a good B tier King Gizzard record. Hypertension and Land Before Timeland are both good tracks. And yeah, moving along to our final King Gizzard album, came out right at the end of October. Changes, which is, according to the band, they've been working on it for 5 years, and I think it really shows. This album has a lot of, it's heavily based on like keys and piano with a little bit of electronic in there as well. And I think it's a unique in the entirety of the King Gizzard discography. Some of my favorite tracks are Change, AstroTurf, Nobody, Exploding Suns, and yeah, that is the completed tier list. In S tier, we have Infest the Rat's Nest, Nonagon Infinity, I'm in Your Mind Fuzz, Sketches of Brunswick East, Polygon to Wannaland, and Ice Death Planet's Lungs. In the A tier, we have Float Along, Fill Your Lungs, Quarters, Flying Microtonal Banana, Fishin' for Fishies, LW, Omnium Gatherum, and Changes. In the B tier, we've got Oddments, Paper Mache Dream Balloon, Gumboot Soup, KG, and Laminated Denim. And then in C tier, we have 12 Bar Brews, Eyes Like the Sky, Murder of the Universe, and Butterfly 3000. So yeah, that's it. The only thing I can say now is if you haven't listened to King Gizzard, go check them out. I highly recommend this band. One of my favorite in recent memory, and really of all time. There hasn't been a band that's really captured my attention and my listening more than them. And what's awesome is that you can really listen to King Gizzard for days on end because every album has a different vibe to it. I'll have one day where I listen to Infest the Rat's Nest and Nonagon Infinity, and then I'll have another day where I want to listen to Brunswick East and Changes and Quarters, you know? And they have such a diverse listing in their music that, I mean, there's something in there for everybody. If you don't like the really hard stuff, you might really vibe with Sketches of Brunswick East. Or if you don't really like traditional American music, you might really rock with Flying Microtonal Banana or KG or LW. There's something in there for everybody, and I think that's what I really appreciate about King Gizzard as a band. Just their ability to create something that's different for everybody. And yeah, I think that's all there is to it. Thank you guys for watching. Go listen to King Gizzard, and I will see y'all later.